Aaron always liked quiet places more than noisy ones. That was why he spent many hours in the old city library. The library was not modern. Its tall shelves carried dust and its wooden floor made soft sounds with every step. To most people, the place seemed boring, but to Aaron, it felt alive with secrets waiting to be found. One rainy afternoon, while searching through old history books, Aaron noticed a small wooden door behind a shelf. It looked forgotten, almost hidden by tall stacks of papers. Curiosity filled his mind. He pushed the shelf just enough to open the door and discovered a narrow staircase going down. He followed carefully, holding a small lamp, and soon reached a basement filled with rolled papers, old boxes, and broken furniture. Among the piles, one box caught his attention. It was made of dark wood with carvings of serpents on its surface. The box was locked, but the lock had long rusted. With gentle effort, Aaron managed to open it. Inside lay a folded piece of parchment, thicker than normal paper and colored like faded gold. On it were drawings of rivers, mountains, and stars. At first it seemed like a map, but the shapes did not match any known geography. Aaron studied the strange marks for hours. He noticed that some stars matched patterns he had seen in astronomy books. They looked like constellations, but their positions were slightly shifted. Then he saw a line connecting the stars to curves that represented rivers. At one corner of the map, small symbols of serpents coiled around a square marked with golden paint. Aaron's heart beat faster. He believed he was looking at directions to something hidden, something ancient. He carried the parchment upstairs and placed it on a large desk. Using books and magnifying glasses, he compared the symbols with Mayan records. The serpents, the golden square, and the arrangement of rivers pointed toward a dense jungle in Central America. Legends from that region spoke of lost tombs and sacred treasure. Many explorers had searched, but most returned with nothing. Still, the details on this parchment were different from any map he had seen before. Days turned into weeks as Aaron carefully translated parts of the parchment. Some words spoke of a serpent tomb, where stone snakes guarded the light of the sun. To most people, this would sound like a simple story, but Aaron felt there was truth hidden in the symbols. He imagined a secret place where ancient builders had created something remarkable, something waiting to be discovered by the right eyes. One evening, as the orange glow of sunset filled the library windows, Aaron leaned back in his chair. He whispered to himself that he had to see the place with his own eyes. The idea of leaving the city and stepping into unknown lands felt both exciting and frightening. Yet his curiosity was stronger than his fear. The parchment had waited for centuries. Now it had chosen him. Aaron began preparing. He did not plan to carry heavy machines or weapons. Instead, he packed notebooks, pencils, a small compass, and a camera. He believed respect and careful observation would open more doors than force. He also carried a copy of the parchment, leaving the original safely stored in the library. Before leaving, Aaron spoke to an elderly librarian who often sat near the entrance. The man had seen Aaron's excitement and asked gently, "You found something, did you not?" Aaron nodded but chose his words with care. "I think I found a forgotten story. I want to follow it." The librarian smiled. "Stories are powerful. If you follow one with respect, it may guide you to a truth greater than gold." These words stayed in Aaron's mind. He did not know exactly what he would find, but he knew his journey was more than a search for treasure. It was a journey to learn what humans of the past had left behind. On the day of departure, the sky was clear. Aaron carried only what he needed and boarded a small bus heading toward the countryside. From there, he would travel by train, then by boat until he reached the edges of the great jungle. The parchment remained close to him at all times. Every time he looked at it, the golden square with coiled serpents seemed to shine faintly, as if reminding him of the path ahead. The bus rolled along the road, and Aaron watched the city disappear behind him. Fields stretched out and mountains rose in the distance. He felt both small and important at the same time. Small because the world was so vast and full of mysteries. Important because he carried knowledge that might connect the present to the wisdom of the ancients. That night, while resting at a small inn, Aaron unfolded the parchment once more. He traced the lines of rivers with his finger and whispered, "The serpent tomb is real. I will find it." Far away in the deep silence of the jungle, the tomb lay hidden under roots and earth. The stone snakes remained still as they had for hundreds of years, waiting. They were not made to harm. They were made to guard. And soon, guided by curiosity and respect, Aaron would be the one to arrive at their door. The train clattered across wide fields and hills, carrying Aaron farther from the city. Each hour took him closer to the unknown. He sat near the window with the parchment folded neatly in his bag. Outside, the sky stretched bright and endless, and the land changed slowly from farmland to rolling green hills. Aaron felt the weight of the journey ahead, but he also felt a deep calm. The decision had been made. There was no turning back now. When the train stopped at a riverside town, Aaron continued his path by boat. The river was wide and slow, carrying him past small villages and long stretches of forest. Children played on the riverbanks and fishermen waved as they pulled nets from the water. Everything felt simple and alive. Aaron knew the jungle ahead would be far different, thicker and wilder, but he welcomed the challenge. By the time he reached the edge of the jungle, the sun was already low. The air grew heavy with warmth and the sound of insects filled every corner. Tall trees stood like pillars, their branches forming a roof that let only a little light through. The ground was soft with fallen leaves, and vines curled from one tree to another. Aaron stepped carefully, taking his time to adjust to the rhythm of the forest. He carried no guide, only trust in his parchment and his own study. Many would have called this foolish, but Aaron believed the tomb was not meant to be reached with force or large teams. It was a place that asked for patience and respect. As he walked deeper, he noticed carvings on stones partly hidden by moss. One stone showed the curve of a serpent's body, another showed a spiral like a coiled tail. Aaron brushed the moss gently away, amazed that the symbols were still clear after so many years. He sketched the carvings in his notebook and compared them to the drawings on his parchment. They matched. The path was real. The further he went, the louder the jungle became. Birds called with sharp cries, and distant animals moved through the undergrowth. The river beside him glistened, bending and twisting like a silver ribbon. Aaron followed it as the parchment suggested. After some time, he reached a wide clearing where villagers had built small homes with thatched roofs. The villagers welcomed him with calm curiosity. They noticed the parchment he carried and asked where he was going. Aaron explained that he was searching for an old tomb, though he avoided speaking of treasure. Instead, he spoke of history and knowledge. An older woman among them nodded slowly and told him stories passed down through her family. She spoke of a hidden tomb deep in the jungle, guarded by serpents of stone. She said many outsiders had gone looking for it, hoping to find riches, but none of them returned with success. Some gave up, others never found the path. The woman's eyes, though, were kind, not warning. She told Aaron that the tomb was not a place of punishment, but of test. Only those who carried respect in their hearts would be guided through. Her words gave Aaron strength. He bowed his head and thanked her for sharing the story. That evening, the villagers offered him food and a place to rest. He listened to the sounds of the jungle at night, the steady song of crickets and the gentle flow of the river. He felt he was getting closer, not just in distance but in spirit. At dawn, Aaron continued. The jungle seemed denser than before. Thick roots crossed his path and vines hung like curtains. Sunlight touched the ground in bright spots, dancing with every movement of the leaves above. Aaron studied the parchment carefully. Each curve of the river and each cluster of stones marked his way. By midday, he discovered a stone stairway half buried under roots and soil. The stairs were wide and old, their surfaces worn smooth. Every step carried the carved pattern of a serpent winding upward. Aaron's heart filled with wonder. This was the place the parchment had led him to. The entrance to something greater lay ahead. He climbed slowly, brushing aside branches and vines. The stairway seemed endless, each step whispering of ancient builders who had shaped them with care. At the top, he found a flat platform where the jungle opened to the sky. From there, he could see the canopy stretch in every direction, green waves under the golden light of the sun. In the center of the platform stood a stone door, tall and silent. Around it were carvings of serpents coiling around squares, just like the golden square on the parchment. The symbols were so precise that they looked almost alive. Aaron placed his hand on the door and felt the cool stone. He did not try to push it open. Instead, he stepped back and studied the carvings, believing that the way forward required thought, not strength. The jungle around him was quiet now, as if waiting. A breeze moved through the trees, carrying the scent of earth and leaves. Aaron sat down near the platform's edge and opened his notebook. He compared the parchment with the carvings, tracing the lines with care. The answer, he felt, was close. The door would not remain closed forever. It was built to recognize those who carried respect, patience, and curiosity. As the sun began to lower, Aaron closed his notebook and looked at the sky. The journey had only just begun, yet he already felt changed. The jungle was not a barrier, it was a teacher. And the serpent tomb, hidden beyond the stone door, waited with secrets that had slept for centuries. Aaron stood before the tall stone door as the light of evening touched the carvings. The serpents carved into the surface seemed to glow softly in the fading sun, their coiled shapes catching shadows like moving bodies. The silence around him grew deep, and he felt that the jungle itself was waiting for his next step. He did not rush. Instead, he opened his notebook and placed the parchment beside him. The golden square marked on the parchment looked very much like the carving on the door. He compared each line and curve, searching for clues. Slowly, he noticed that the door's serpents were arranged in a pattern that reminded him of constellations in the night sky. The memory of long nights spent studying the codex in the library returned to him. The answer was not in force, but in stars and rhythm. As darkness approached, Aaron lit a small lantern and placed it on the ground. The soft glow revealed small indentations on the stone steps leading up to the door. Some were shaped like circles, others like triangles. He pressed one gently, and the step gave a faint vibration under his hand. It felt alive, like a hidden mechanism waiting to be understood. Aaron leaned back, thinking carefully. The villagers had said the tomb was a test. The old librarian had spoken of respect and truth. Perhaps the door was not a barrier but a puzzle. He looked up at the sky where the first stars were beginning to appear. Then he remembered how in the codex, certain stars had been joined by lines forming a serpent shape. He placed the parchment on the steps and aligned it with the stars above. The match was clear. Each carved shape on the stone steps represented a star. If pressed in the correct order, they would form the path of the serpent in the sky. Aaron stood, breathed slowly, and began pressing the stones one by one. At first, nothing happened. Then, as he completed the pattern, a low hum rose from the stairway. The carved serpents on the door glowed faintly, as if light was moving through their stone bodies. The sound was gentle, almost like a song. Aaron felt no fear, only wonder. The door did not swing open. Instead, a narrow line of light appeared at its center, spreading slowly until it formed a wide entrance. The heavy stone seemed to fold into itself, leaving a dark passage beyond. A cool breeze flowed outward, carrying the scent of earth and time. Aaron stepped back and bowed his head. He whispered thanks, not to the stone but to the people of the past who had built this place. Their knowledge had crossed centuries to reach him. Only then did he step forward into the passage. The walls inside were smooth and tall, carved with lines of serpents twisting upward. Their eyes were made of jade that reflected the light of his lantern. The path was narrow, guiding him downward. His footsteps echoed softly, and each sound reminded him that he was the first in a long time to walk this way. As he moved deeper, he reached a chamber where the floor was covered in tiles shaped like scales. In the center of the room stood a large stone slab carved into the form of a serpent coiled in a circle. Around the edges were smaller carvings, each representing water, fire, wind, and earth. Aaron studied the slab closely. The serpent's head pointed toward a small gap in the wall that seemed like another passage. But the gap was blocked by stone bars, and the way forward was not open. He bent down and touched the tiles on the floor. Some felt warmer than others, even though the air was cool. He remembered the symbols on the parchment once more. Alongside the golden square were drawings of 4 elements. He understood now. The builders wanted travelers to honor the balance of the world before moving deeper. It was not about solving a trick, but about recognizing harmony. Aaron pressed the tiles in the order of water, fire, wind, and earth. The serpent slab shifted slowly, its stone body turning as if alive. The bars in the wall pulled back with a soft grinding sound, and the passage beyond opened. For a moment, Aaron stood still, filled with quiet respect. The builders had not built traps to keep people away. They had built lessons to remind those who entered of patience, balance, and observation. The serpent was not a symbol of fear, but of wisdom, moving with grace through both earth and sky. He walked into the next passage. The air grew cooler and carried a faint shimmer of light that seemed to come from deeper within. The tunnel walls sparkled with crystals, their surfaces catching his lantern's glow. Each step felt like a journey back in time, walking where ancient builders had once walked with purpose. Finally, Aaron reached another platform. Here, the floor opened into a wide stone bridge leading into darkness. Along its edges were more carvings of serpents, each one facing forward as if guiding him across. The bridge seemed endless, yet he felt a sense of trust. The builders wanted him to continue. Aaron stood at the edge of the bridge and closed his eyes. The jungle outside, the villagers' words, the librarian's advice, and the stars above all came back to him. The path was more than a search for treasure. It was a path of learning, of proving that humans could seek wisdom with heart and respect. With steady steps, Aaron walked forward into the shadowed bridge, ready for what awaited him on the other side. Aaron crossed the long stone bridge with careful steps. His lantern light danced across the carved serpents that lined the sides. Their stone eyes seemed to watch him, though they remained still and silent. The air was cool and a faint echo followed every sound of his footsteps. The deeper he went, the more he felt the presence of something waiting. At last, the bridge ended in a wide chamber. The ceiling rose high above, decorated with countless carvings of scales and winding shapes. In the center of the chamber stood statues of serpents, each one taller than a person. Their bodies were carved from dark stone, and their eyes were polished jade that caught the glow of his lantern. Some coils rested on the floor while others rose upward as if ready to strike the sky. Aaron paused, breathing slowly. The chamber was silent, yet he felt a gentle hum in the air, as though the stone itself carried energy. He walked closer to one of the statues and studied the details. Every scale had been carved with great care, and the serpent's mouth was slightly open as though speaking without words. He stepped back and looked around. There were 12 statues in total, forming a circle around the chamber. In the center of that circle lay a large disc set into the floor. The disc showed a serpent curled into a spiral, its tail meeting its head. Around the edges of the disc were small square slots. Aaron set down his lantern and pulled out his notebook. He compared the chamber with the parchment. The parchment showed serpents circling a golden square, with smaller marks around it. The design matched the chamber almost perfectly. He realized the statues were not placed only for decoration. They were guardians watching over the path to the heart of the tomb. As he observed, something unexpected happened. When his lantern light touched the eyes of one statue, the jade seemed to shimmer faintly. Then another statue shimmered, and then another, until the chamber glowed with a soft green light. The statues did not move like living creatures, but their eyes shone as if awakening from a long sleep. Aaron felt no fear. Instead, he felt honored. These stone serpents had waited for centuries not to harm but to test. He stepped carefully onto the central disc, and at once the green light from the statues grew brighter. The disc under his feet vibrated gently, and small symbols began to glow in the slots around its edge. The slots showed different patterns, circles, spirals, and waves. Aaron studied them, remembering the lessons from earlier. The builders always linked their puzzles to nature, the stars, or balance. He looked at the statues again. Each serpent faced in a different direction, pointing toward the walls where carvings of rivers, flames, winds, and mountains stretched across the stone. It became clear. Each guardian was connected to an element. The puzzle asked him to follow the order of nature, just as he had done before. He pressed the slots in the sequence of water, fire, wind, and earth. The chamber hummed, and the disc rotated slowly as though unlocking something below. The statue's eyes glowed brighter, and a soft sound filled the room like the quiet rhythm of a flute. The serpents were not statues only. They were guardians that responded to respect and understanding. As the disc completed its turn, a new path opened at the far side of the chamber. A wide archway revealed steps leading downward, deeper into the tomb. Aaron bowed slightly to the statues, thanking them for guiding him. He felt certain that they were more than stone. They carried the wisdom and spirit of the ancient builders. He picked up his lantern and walked toward the archway. As he stepped onto the first stair, he heard a faint shift behind him. Turning back, he saw the statue's eyes slowly dim, returning to their silent state. The guardians had completed their duty for now. The stairway led him into another passage, this one narrower but lined with walls covered in detailed carvings. The carvings showed scenes of people standing under the stars, raising their hands toward the sky. In some places, the people were shown walking beside large serpents, not in fear but in harmony. The message was clear. The serpent was a guide, a protector, a symbol of knowledge that connected earth to heaven. As Aaron walked, he thought about how many explorers before him had failed to find this place. Perhaps they had searched for gold only, without respect for the meaning behind it. The tomb was not built to reward greed. It was built to test patience, wisdom, and the desire to learn. The passage finally opened into a smaller chamber filled with soft golden light. The source was not the lantern, but crystals in the ceiling that glowed like captured sunlight. The floor was smooth and round, with another serpent design at its center. Unlike the others, this serpent was made of polished stone that shimmered faintly, as though alive. Aaron stopped at the edge of the chamber, amazed. He felt that this was the beginning of something even greater. The guardians had let him pass, but deeper secrets still waited. The tomb was guiding him step by step, asking him to prove that he sought truth more than treasure. He placed his lantern on the floor and sat for a moment in the glow of the crystals. The air was cool, yet the light felt warm on his face. He opened his notebook and sketched the chamber carefully, knowing that every detail was part of a larger story. As he closed his notebook, he looked once more at the shimmering serpent at the center of the chamber. He whispered softly, "I am ready to learn." The tomb was silent, but he felt a gentle answer in the glow of the crystals above, as if the guardians themselves were listening. Aaron stepped carefully into the new chamber, where the glowing crystals above filled the space with soft golden light. The serpent carved at the center of the floor seemed to shimmer with a life of its own. Its polished surface reflected the glow, making it appear as if it were moving gently even though it was still stone. He stood quietly for a moment, letting his eyes take in every detail. The walls of the chamber were covered with carvings, not of battles or fear, but of people and serpents together. In one carving, humans carried baskets of grain, while serpents coiled peacefully beside them. In another, the people raised their arms toward stars while serpents lifted their heads to the sky. These carvings told a story of partnership, of guardianship, of wisdom shared between beings of stone and people of flesh. Aaron's heart filled with respect. He understood more clearly now. The serpent was not meant as a symbol of danger. It was a guide and a teacher. The builders of this tomb had wanted visitors to learn that knowledge was stronger than fear. At the far side of the chamber, a tall archway opened into another hall. The glow there was brighter, shining with a golden radiance that drew him forward. Holding his lantern, though he barely needed it anymore, Aaron walked with careful steps through the archway and into the hall beyond. The sight before him left him breathless. The hall stretched wide and high, its ceiling glittering with golden plates that reflected light like 1,000 tiny suns. Along the walls stood pillars shaped like rising serpents, their heads meeting the roof as though holding it up. Between the pillars, panels of pure gold were set into the stone, each one carved with images of the heavens. Stars, moons, and suns spiraled in patterns across the shining metal. In the very center of the hall stood a grand figure of a serpent made entirely of gold. Its body coiled upward in circles, and at the top its head held a golden sphere. The sphere glowed faintly, as though filled with a light deeper than the reflection of the crystals. The golden serpent seemed both still and alive, as though it carried the memory of ancient wisdom in its curves. Aaron stood in awe. The tomb was far greater than he had ever imagined. He had expected a chamber of treasure, but what he saw was a hall of knowledge, built not for greed but for wonder. Every surface told a story. Every carving sang of the connection between earth and sky. He walked slowly around the hall, notebook in hand. He sketched the golden panels and copied the star patterns onto his pages. Some constellations were familiar, but others were unknown to him. They pointed to places in the universe that he had never seen on modern charts. The Mayans, he realized, had carried knowledge of the stars that reached far beyond their time. The golden serpent in the center drew him back. He approached and placed his hand gently on its polished coils. The surface was cool, yet he felt a faint vibration beneath, as though the serpent carried a hidden rhythm. His eyes turned upward to the golden sphere in its mouth. The sphere glowed with a soft inner light, not bright but steady, like the heartbeat of the tomb itself. Aaron stepped back and studied the carvings on the floor around the golden figure. The design showed people standing in a circle, their hands raised toward the sphere. He followed the lines with his eyes and realized the sphere was not a symbol of wealth. It was a symbol of the sun, the stars, and the great light that connected all things. He whispered softly, "This is not gold to be taken. This is gold to be remembered." The hall responded in silence, yet the glow of the sphere seemed to grow warmer. Aaron felt he was being acknowledged, as though the builders had placed this test long ago, waiting for someone who would see beyond treasure. He sat near the base of the golden serpent and opened his notebook again. He wrote about the harmony of the carvings, about the serpents as guardians, and about the sphere as a symbol of light and unity. He sketched the patterns carefully, knowing these records would one day show the world that the Mayans were not simply builders of stone, but thinkers who reached for the stars. Hours passed quietly as he studied. He felt no rush to leave. The hall seemed timeless, as though it existed outside the flow of ordinary days. Here, surrounded by golden light and ancient wisdom, he felt both very small and deeply connected to something vast. When at last he rose, Aaron looked once more at the serpent and the sphere. The guardians had led him here step by step, through puzzles and passages, to teach him that true treasure was knowledge. He bowed his head in gratitude. The path forward still waited, for at the far end of the hall another doorway stood, framed by golden carvings of stars and serpents. Beyond that doorway, Aaron knew, lay the deepest secret of the tomb. With steady hands, he picked up his lantern, closed his notebook, and walked toward the doorway. The golden hall glowed behind him, but its light remained in his heart. He was ready for what the tomb wished to reveal next. Aaron stepped through the doorway at the far end of the golden hall. A cool breeze greeted him, carrying the faint scent of earth and stone. The passage narrowed slightly, and the walls were lined with carvings unlike any he had seen before. Stars, planets, and spirals filled the stone, showing patterns that seemed to reach far beyond Earth. He held his lantern high, studying the carvings carefully. Each symbol was intricate and precise. Some resembled the constellations he knew, while others were unfamiliar yet beautiful in their balance. He realized that the tomb was not simply a resting place for treasure. It was a record of knowledge, a map of the universe hidden in stone by people long ago. In the center of the chamber, a circular platform rose slightly above the floor. On it rested a golden sphere, smaller than the one in the previous hall, yet glowing with a soft, steady light. Around the sphere were small carvings of humans reaching toward the sky. Their hands were open, palms facing upward as though receiving something unseen. Aaron knelt near the platform. He studied the carvings and traced their lines with his fingers. He noticed that the lines connected the sphere to other symbols on the walls. The patterns matched the unknown constellations. The Mayans had not only observed the stars, they had recorded them, linking human understanding to the heavens. His heart swelled with wonder. These builders had known more than most people realized. They had reached for knowledge, not for gold or power, but for understanding. The stone snakes, the puzzles, the glowing spheres, all were part of a system to teach and guide those who sought truth. Aaron stepped back and opened his notebook. He sketched the sphere, the carvings, and the constellations. He wanted to remember every detail, to share the hidden wisdom with those who would study it carefully. Every line told a story of humans reaching for more, of courage, curiosity, and respect for knowledge. He walked slowly around the chamber, noticing small details he had missed at first. Tiny carvings of animals and plants appeared beside the stars, showing that the builders had observed life on Earth as carefully as the heavens. The tomb celebrated harmony, teaching that humans were part of a greater system that connected Earth and sky. As he studied, Aaron realized something deeper. The stone snakes were not only guardians of the tomb, they were guardians of knowledge. Their presence was a reminder that wisdom is protected, not hidden for selfish reasons. Only those who approached with respect and patience could reach this place. Those who sought it with greed or impatience would never see its truths. Aaron felt gratitude for the builders. He understood that the real treasure was not gold or jewels. It was the understanding that humans, even in ancient times, could reach far beyond their immediate world. They had studied, observed, and preserved knowledge for future generations. He knelt again beside the sphere and placed his hand lightly on its surface. A faint warmth spread through his fingers, and he imagined the builders smiling across time. They had left this gift for someone who would see with eyes of curiosity and a heart of respect. Aaron whispered softly, "Thank you for trusting me with your story." For a long while he sat quietly, absorbing the quiet majesty of the chamber. He realized that this tomb, hidden for centuries, was more than a place to explore. It was a lesson in human potential. Humans had always reached for the stars, not only with machines or tools, but with imagination, study, and courage. Finally, Aaron rose and looked around once more. The carvings on the walls seemed to glow in recognition, and the golden sphere shimmered gently. He took one last careful sketch in his notebook and folded it. The chamber's secrets were now part of his journey, and he would carry them forward with honor. He knew it was time to return. The path back would be the same, guided by stone serpents and puzzles, but now he walked with deeper understanding. The tomb had shown him that the greatest discovery was not the gold, but the wisdom that humans could reach across time and space. As he stepped toward the passage that led back to the Golden Hall, Aaron felt a quiet joy. He had not just found a tomb, he had found proof that humans, with respect, patience, and curiosity, could unlock secrets meant for minds and hearts, not for greed. The stone snakes waited silently in the shadows, their purpose fulfilled for now. They were more than guardians, they were teachers. And Aaron knew that the story of the Serpent tomb, its gold, and its wisdom would inspire others to seek knowledge with courage and care. He walked slowly, carrying the light of the golden sphere in his heart, ready to share the hidden truth with the world. Aaron emerged from the passage and returned to the Golden Hall. The light from the crystals and golden carvings reflected softly across the walls. He paused for a moment, taking in the beauty one last time. The tomb had shown him wonders he could never have imagined. It had taught him lessons not of treasure but of patience, respect, and the power of curiosity. He walked carefully back through the chambers and stairways, retracing the path guided by the stone serpents. Each step felt familiar now, but the sense of awe remained. The guardians had watched him with silent wisdom. He had passed their tests not by strength, but by understanding. When he finally reached the exit to the jungle, the sun was rising, painting the canopy with golden light. Birds sang in the trees, and a soft breeze carried the fresh scent of earth and leaves. Aaron took a deep breath and stepped out. The world outside felt alive in a new way. The tomb had connected him not only to the past, but to the universe beyond. He carefully unrolled his notebook and parchment, reviewing the sketches and notes he had made. The constellations, the carvings, and the golden spheres all were recorded. He smiled, knowing that the knowledge he carried was more valuable than gold. It would guide others who sought understanding, showing that humans could reach for wisdom across time. On his way back to the village, Aaron stopped to meet the villagers who had first told him stories of the Serpent tomb. They listened as he spoke quietly about what he had seen. He did not describe gold or riches, but the lessons of the tomb. The elders nodded, understanding that this journey was about learning and respect, not taking. The villagers smiled as they realized that the tomb had chosen wisely. Aaron continued his journey to the city, carrying his notes, sketches, and a small fragment of crystal from the tomb that glowed faintly. It was not gold, but a piece of the wisdom and light he had found. He knew it would remind everyone who saw it that the greatest treasure was knowledge, and the greatest power was curiosity. At the library, he carefully stored the parchment and notes for study. Scholars and historians came to see his work, amazed by the details of the tomb. They marveled at the constellations, the golden spheres, and the careful design of the chambers. Aaron shared not just the drawings, but the story of patience, observation, and respect. The world learned that the Mayans had not only built tombs of stone and gold, but tombs of wisdom that celebrated human potential. Over time, the story of the Serpent tomb spread. People everywhere heard of the Golden Hall, the stone serpents, and the knowledge waiting for those who sought it with the right heart. Explorers and students alike learned to study the stars, the earth, and the past. The tomb inspired many to pursue knowledge with care, understanding that curiosity and respect could unlock doors that force and greed could not. Aaron often returned to the city library, sitting quietly among the shelves. He would look at the stars through the skylight and remember the stone paths, the Golden Hall, and the Serpent guardians. The tomb had taught him that humans were capable of extraordinary things when they approached life with patience, courage, and respect. Sometimes when he shared the story with young students, he would smile and say that the greatest treasures are not always gold or jewels. They are the lessons that guide us, the discoveries that open our minds, and the connections we make across time. The tomb had waited for centuries, but its message was timeless. Aaron placed the glowing crystal on a shelf in the library. Its soft light reminded him daily that the journey had been about more than adventure. It was about learning, about honoring the work of those who came before, and about showing that humans are special because they can dream, discover and respect the world around them. And so, the Serpent tomb remained hidden in the jungle, its stone guardian silent but ready. They had completed their test and Aaron had proven himself worthy. The knowledge of the tomb now lived in him and in the hearts of all who learned from his journey. Humans had reached across centuries, guided by wisdom and curiosity, and they had discovered that the greatest treasures of all are those that cannot be taken, only understood. Aaron looked at the crystal one last time and smiled. The tomb had given him more than knowledge. It had given him a story to share, a truth to protect, and the reminder that humans are capable of reaching for the stars in every way, with mind, heart, and imagination together. He turned back toward the library shelves, ready to continue learning, ready to inspire others, and ready to keep the light of the Serpent tomb alive for generations to come.